In a previous video, I talked about using the concatenate function to take information that's in two cells, in this case part of a sentence, and then string them together and combine them into a single cell meaning. And again, that's called concatenate. One obstacle that I have to overcome often is when I'm looking at large data sets, I get data that's kind of jumbled up together, and I have to parse it out. For example, let's look at this one. If you see this giant string of text, and over here, if I'm still trying to get this out, what it means is that the words and the letters that I need are in there, but I need some type of a tool or a strategy or a function combination to apply to that in order to get this out. And unfortunately, I have to do this a lot anytime I'm getting information from multiple databases or multiple spreadsheets or from different instruments. So you can imagine if you had 10,000 rows in a database or 10,000 rows in a spreadsheet where you have to figure out some type of a solution to be able to separate this out. You've got your work cut out for you. Well, we're going to try and tackle that with a couple of different ways in Microsoft Excel. Here I'm looking at a test file, which is showing me the results of a type of analytical test which was performed on some samples. And unfortunately, it's a bit of a mess. I mean, we can see it, but it's one big text file, and we can't really parse out what the information means in any way to make heads or tails of it. So one thing that you can do with a text file is you can open up Microsoft Excel, and you can drag this in. And Excel by default will do its best to try and read this in some type of a way that makes sense. So let's click here, and then we'll double click to kind of space out what we're looking at. Okay, staying with our theme of trying to parse out information that's joined together. What I have here, these last four digits are the results of the test. And this first bit, before I see a comma, is sort of like a numerical identifier for the sample that was tested. And let's say in the middle here we have some other type of code. It doesn't matter. The problem is we need to be able to separate these. Now, fortunately for us, every single one of these is separated appropriately by commas. So we can use something that's called text to columns. So I'm going to Control Shift down. I guess I better start here. Control Shift down. And I'm going to go Data, Text to Columns. I'm going to click on Fixed Width. And this is showing me right now, when I click Finish, what it's going to look like. I'm going to hit Next. And what it's telling me is I can click here, and I can click here. And it's telling me that it's now going to break this up based on how I've selected it. Now, if I scroll down, you can see that's not going to be very convenient because I'm going to get halfway down through here, and it's going to break up. Let's try it and see what happens. Okay, so it worked up here for the top. But down here we're starting to see problems because we really wanted to be able to get this last number here separated. And it split our identifier into two pieces. So that's not really what we want. So let's try it a different way. Text to columns, and this time, rather than actually dialing it in, I'm going to say delimited. And what it's now going to do is it's going to give me some options. I can choose which particular characters are going to cause it to split. So in my case, I'm using commas. So everywhere there's a comma, it's going to split it into a new column. So I'm going to scroll down there. And that seems to be fine because it's giving me this number by itself on the end everywhere. So that's going to work. So I'm going to say Finish. Boom. Now I've got these split out. Now it looks like I may have had one little problem. But it looks like it was just... Okay, so let's go back and see if we can figure out why. So text to columns, delimited. And I bet it's because of this tab here. So let's see if we can figure out where it was. It's right there. So this one. What happens if we remove the tab? I'm not sure. Okay. I can see why. So if you'll look here, all of these is just a space between this identifier and this three-letter code. But in this one, there's a comma, and that's why it's treating it different than the rest of them. Okay, so let's scroll back out and see if we can fix that. So Control Shift down, text to columns, delimited width, comma, and then next, and then finish. Now, what we could do is because we just got one, we can manually move it back. If it was a little bit more complicated, we might have to try something else. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to copy these, put them there, select those two, drag them back one, and now everything's fine. Okay? We can use text to columns to parse out data in different ways. So even though you can understand that we have done this, it might not be intuitive as to why you would do this. In this particular example, what we need to be able to do is to identify whether or not the results of a test are positive or negative. And the only way we can do that is any one of these numbers that is smaller than this number would be positive. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say equal to average of these two numbers. Okay. I'm just going to highlight them so that I can make it make sense. Okay. So what I'm going to say now is I'm going to say if this number is less than or equal to this, and I'm going to lock it so that it doesn't move, then I'm going to say positive, and if it's not, I'm going to say negative. Now I'm just going to scroll this down to the bottom, and I can see that all of these results look to be negative. And I'll do a quick conditional formatting and show me anything that contains the text positive, and I want you to custom format that with a green like that. And as you can see, the only place that happens is right here. Now, if, for example, this one down here happened to be 0.357, this would now change to positive and it would be green. So you can see in this example, if we didn't know how to parse this information out, we wouldn't be able to solve this problem. And if we're trying to develop a solution that is robust, something that can work on large data sets repetitively, then we want to build out some type of functionality that we can understand and that will work. So this is one way that you can use text to columns as a way to parse your data.